All right, let's try this again. All right, I gotta deal with this. All right, now I'm connected. So Restream was messing me about. I'll just remove this. Let's see if I can update these. Sorry, I gotta... Restream is messing me about. All right, let me update all the links. Very, very annoying. Just gotta update all the notifications now. All right. So I think we're live on YouTube now. And I want to add a comment here. Can I do this? No. So I'm just gonna get rid of this one. Don't know why that's powered by Restream. Okay. That one, get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. And open that one. Okay. Let's end. Why is this doing this? Damn Restream. Just message and change my freaking. Especially when you're not actually. They're changing it when they're not actually in it anymore. Wow. Now I gotta make sure I'm not setting the current one to private, the one that I'm currently trying to stream on. And why is this unlisted now? God damn it. And then Restream changes my settings, and those get propagated to other streams, which is so ridiculous. Alright, so these are all private. And I can delete them later. This one is public. And somebody has a question about a puzzle that has more than... yeah. Somebody was posting a question about this puzzle. Just put that in here. And I believe they have to... Ah, wait, no, this doesn't work. Huh? We don't have multi-digit yet. I mean, there should be a way of adding tens. There's a 10 is 0 option, but that's not gonna be enough. I don't know what the WWW is. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, sorry about this mess. Hope you guys are gonna join on YouTube in the end. It would be a shame if you didn't. All right. Let me let Mark know so he doesn't miss it. All right. Wow, that was a pain in the butt. So, there was a small bug I wanted to fix before we get started working. Yeah, so, this one. Number 11. And I think there was something else in my workflow to-do list. Yes. I don't know if I'll do this today, but we have this little thing because I've noticed, especially on my phone, I think there's a margin up here that's not proportional to the size. So it's like a fixed value relative to the grid. So when the grid is large relative to the rest of the space, it creates a fairly big space, much larger than other elements on the screen. And then it causes the grid to be very small. So that's kind of silly, especially on a phone. And I want to I've long ago started updating the layouting mechanism, and I want to improve this massively to create the larger hotspots for mobile. But this would be a very easy win. So I'm gonna see if I can push that in there. And let's see if there's some. Okay, I'm all discombobulated now. All right, I don't know if the people are on Twitch now. Nobody seems to have joined the YouTube stream. Let me actually edit my posts in here. And actually get rid of the old link. And I'll do the same thing in the Sudoku Solvers Discord. And I just want to check that that URL actually works. Yeah, that one's correct. All right. All right. So let's look at the this bug. So the idea is currently, let me make sure we're on the right branch. Yes, we're on master. So basically right now, if I'm here, let's say, and I select a cell and I spacebar through the pen tool, it clears the selection. That's something I added the other day. But I didn't really think about just going through the pen tool. I thought about going to the pen tool. Because previously it kept the selection, and then you pressed a button and it would actually... Hey, Mark. I'm just going to do a little bit of bug squashing and then I'll continue working on the editor. So there's a little issue... because internally you know how it works. The pen tool internally works basically the same way as if you're selecting cells and then pressing the buttons, right? Just that, it's translating mouse movements to those button presses. And what happened was that if you had a selection before you entered the pen tool and then pressed a number, it would actually create, you could select the whole grid and create downlines in all cells. So I made it clear the selection when you enter the pen tool. But now I often find myself having some cells selected. Let's say I'm in corner mode or in center mark mode, and I want to spacebar to digit mode, and it clears the selection. So, and it's bugged me a couple of times, and I've only changed it yesterday. So I feel that's definitely something I can fix. So first of all, I think we did another fix, which might not need this anymore at all. So I'm gonna check if I can just get rid of the deselect call. Now I don't remember where it is. No, that's the letter tool. That's not the pen tool. So let's see. Does this not interfere? Oh yeah, this interferes with the editor, but I'll deal with that another time. Oh, actually we can just do this here as well. So we can do something like this, this and this. Because we had issues with scoping. Because this is not in a closure, it should be. There we go. And then when I merged it with the editor code, I had a problem there. All right, so enter tool. I think that's where it does it. Handle tool, enter. So we have an app deselect here. And let's do this and see if that causes the same issue. So if I now press a number, yeah, so that's the problem because the selection maintains. So we have two choices. We have the option of ignoring button presses, at least digit entry. I mean, you know, there's no expectations that the digits do anything in the letter in the pen tool. So if I do this, right, and even with the mouse, yes. And now if I press, let's say A. Okay, that's the left. So let's do Alt for letters. Alt A. So it checks because we're in a tool that's not a letter supporting tool. So that part at least works. By the way, Mark, as a patron support and all that, if you have a specific wish for a specific kind of job you would like to see me do during a stream, if you like bug squashing, if you want me to work on a specific feature, or if you have a suggestion of something to implement, just let me know. Yeah, probably what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep the selection and just clear it, because yeah, there's a couple of options I have, right? To be honest, when we are doing something, it actually packages up actions, right? It does the grouping. So we can actually clear selection. And in fact, we do. We clear the selection on click cell. In fact, we are clearing the selections on all the pen actions. But the pen actions only pay attention to the mouse right now. So the easier thing would be to listen to the keyboard, similar to, to have a global key handler. Like this. Let's do this here. So if I have key handlers, something like this, and we can do something like this. So this would tell it to handle all keys, but I'm just doing this to see what's going on. Handle key rip. Where are we? N dot key handlers dot key, and then handler. And I just want to see when they get triggered. So let's say we have a selection. We have an error. Here we go. So we have a selection, and I go to the pen tool, and now I press 1. So key handler, if I do a return true here, so selection, pen tool 1. So now it basically intercepts this, but yeah. So if we now limit this to the digit keys, which is I think the only ones we really care about here, I think that's good enough. So let's just make sure. I'm trying to remember the syntax for checking that. So for each key handler, if is key event. So if is key, and is key looks at key as a function. Or it does a direct match. I was hoping that it would accept a regular expression as well. And I think that's a feature I want to add. So if we have a regex, right, we can say instance of regexp true, right, and type of object. All right. So what I'm going to do is, yeah, because because there's no buttons here, right? I removed the buttons, so you can't press the buttons. So there's no way of entering a 1 while you're in the pen tool. Now you could, in theory, you know, run something in the console and mess around with it, but like, it's not actually an illegal thing or whatever. You know, it's just the equivalent of as if I drew the line. It does the same thing, except it lets you draw multiple downwards line with a singular action, for example. So it's not really a big deal. Like if you don't press a button, it won't happen. It's just sometimes it happens to me by accident, especially when I'm using, you know, Control Alt keys and whatever, and it doesn't switch to the right tool as I expected, and I press the number, and then I suddenly have a pen tool lines there. And then removing them is actually a pain in the ass because you can't just select them and remove them in bulk, right? So I think what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to add the feature that the isKey function also accepts regular expressions. So if key instance of regexp, then we can do return regexp.test. The problem is, do I want to test against code or against key? Ah, that's a bit of a shame. I could return more than one regular expression. I could do an OR, like pass it both of them in. So we could do something like this. I think that's the simplest, that's fairly universal here. Ah, no, not regex key. So now what I can do here is I can say key is going to be a regular expression that handles the digits, and that's it. I don't know how that would handle multi-digits in the future, but you can't really type them in by keyboard anyways. It would be great if we had a way of doing, you know, a limited set of multi-digits, like 12 digits, for example, you know. So have a single key way of entering, or like maybe the way we're using. What do you think about using a what's the word? A toggle key, like Alt 1 is 11 and Alt 0 is 10, you know, that kind of thing. Because with puzzles, often you don't need arbitrary multiple digit numbers, you know, often you need the 10s or the 20s, you know. Because I remember you were looking into this sort of stuff and you were wondering about that. And the other option for multi-digit could also be, sorry, I'm thinking about multi-digit, I'm not doing what's in front of me. The other thing for multi-digits we could use is that if you hold a key, because right now, I think the key triggers on down, right? So if I have a selection, I press down. Wait, what? Oh, the problem is this key handler triggers even when we're not here, when this is not our tool. So does that mean A works? Yeah. Yeah, and it works on down. So the trick would be that if we, right now it works on down, but what if instead of on down it works on up? And then you could say you hold the 1 down and then you press a 2, and then we remember which number key is being held down, and then when you press the second one, then it places a double-digit number. I don't know. I wonder if that would be a faster way of typing in double-digit numbers, while still being able to type in single-digit numbers at the same time. Okay, the problem is, with a regular expression here, is we still have to check if the tool is the current tool, right? And that's really something... Yeah, the letter tool does that a lot, so let's check. Is tool with letters, includes tool, is tool with letters, is tool with letters, is tool... Didn't I not? Is enabled. Current tool. Find dot tool. Tool letter mode, app tool, settings tool. Yeah, here it's checking is tool with letters, but we basically just want to check what app.tool is, right? And the handler gets passed what exactly? Is key. Handler call tool event. Call. Handler tool. Yeah, it's not a big deal. But it's something I think I introduced recently. Or maybe I haven't even, but it's been bugging me, so I wanted to fix it. And this? I don't know if... I think tool is a string here, isn't it? So if I make a selection... Oh. Alright, I'm missing... Here. I'm missing. So if I go here and I press L1. Wow, is key is getting called a lot. What the heck? Holy crap. Anyway, tool is the event. Ah, but this might be the tool. No. I thought I'm binding it to tool and passing an event. Does the handler... Oh, but the handler here is pre-bound, isn't it? Yeah. I think that's good enough. So if I... Nope. Do the selection here. Go here. Press the 1. So... we basically just want to do... Yeah. So... return equals this dot name. So let's reset. Go here. Digit mode, select a few things, clear console, go here, press 1. Nothing happens, go back, selection remains, but if I draw, it works fine. Hey Andy. Oh yeah, I've thought about it a lot. I think about it almost daily. I wish I had it. It would be wonderful. The problem is not so much the key bindings and making them configurable. The problem is the weird and wonderful interaction. So there's some things that I've already tried to make configurable. So for example, I have... where is it? This is the wrong tool to look at. But if you look at the core tools, right? So for example, the corner tool has a temp key function. But the problem is it now looks at the states of other keys, right? So... how do you put this kind of interaction into a configuration tool, right? If it's not a function. So then you kind of have to come up with a domain-specific language, a DSL, where I can say, so for example, this could look like not CTRL and Alt or Shift, for example, right? But now I have to write the language that parses it, I have to document it, or I have to create a UI tool to build these combinations and all this. Or, which might actually be easier, that I have sort of a predefined list of like combination of trigger keys with Control, Alt, Shift, Meta, Command. There isn't that many, right? And you just have a long drop-down list with all the possible configurations of those, you know? Like, it's trivial to do it with, okay, which key do you want to press? You know, Control V, you know, which Control plus, or which, you know, like a lot of tools will have, like, for example, in this case, Alt and Shift. I mean, maybe here, like, with a configuration tool, it might not be a problem, because if somebody configures Shift for letters, and then they do Control Shift for changing to corner mode or whatever, then it's up to them. But like, I don't want them to have to figure that out, so that then they have to change all of these to use Alt instead, you know? So there's a couple of weird multi-key combinations which are kind of hard, because they're not living in isolation, they're kind of interacting with each other. Like if I'm here, I'm pressing Control and Alt, and then maybe Shift, right? Because Control Shift is this, and I want to do Alt, and like, there's a lot of multiple levels to it. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I kind of like, I want to do it perfectly, so I don't do the good enough or the 90% thing first, which I should do. Like, I should do a configurator for all the basic stuff, you know? But to be honest, I'd rather do a color configuration first. I think that's, more people will get use out of that. And to be honest, configuring keys in an application that has a lot of keys is actually a huge pain in the butt. Like, people don't actually do it. Power users do, but few actually use it. Like, a very small percentage of people would do it. So in my mind, it would have to go together with people being able to create a configuration that they can share, and people can switch between profiles. So you have a profile manager and you have profile sharing, and before you know it, you have a lot of, you know, extra functionality here that's quite complex. Yeah, like you're absolutely right. And to be honest, a partial solution might already be really helpful. Because right now, even the other advantage of a configurator is that it's almost documentation of what hotkeys, like to me, in a game, I bring up the options screen for the keyboard. That's the only way I know what keys even exist, you know? So it's kind of documentation in a way. Because right now there's so many ways of doing the same thing, and a lot of people don't even know. You know, there's, for example, you know, people know Z, X, V, C, and V, but they don't know that B goes to the pen tool. And if you add another tool here, let's say replay tool, that now N goes to the replay tool. So it automatically, you know, uses the next key on the bottom row for going to the next tool. People don't know this, right? Or they don't know that Shift Space goes back one tool. But of course, it interacts badly with the temporary key for pressing Shift for center marks. So if I press Space here, now if I press Shift, it temporarily goes there. But if I press Space now, it goes permanently there. And if I relieve Shift now, I stay there. You know? So let's say from color, Shift brings me there, Shift Space brings me there, but Shift brings me back here. If I relieve Shift, now I'm in center mode. If I press Space 2 more times, I'll be in digit mode. And if I relieve Shift now I'm digit mode, right? And to make that work smoothly and well and do the thing you imagine it should do is actually... I'm happy it works as well as it does, right? And tinkering with it is going to be very, very, very time-consuming and painful. And then it'll affect, you know, less than 5% of users. And that's of 16,000 people every month. Not that many, right? I currently have almost as many monthly users on the website as I have total buyers for SudokuPad, which is quite something after, you know, selling it for almost a year now. 3/4 of a year, maybe. All right, this one works. So let's see how small we can make this. I think... The thing is, I could turn this into a function and just return... because it's basically calling two functions. The thing is, this is not a function now, but isKey is getting called a lot, actually. I'm a bit curious about that. IsKey is called a lot. Why is it called so many times? And where is it getting called from? So if I'm here, and I go here, and I press 1, I clear, and I click. Oh. So it calls as, well, obviously it calls IsKey a bunch of times when there isn't a key, right? Why does it call is key on a mouse event? Ah, because you might... Whoa, wait a second. Wait a second, what's going on here? Tool temp key. In handle drag start, 3625. 3625. Handle drag start. Tool temp key. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? This will even work on, and that's the complexity, right? So suddenly this needs to work not on a keyboard event, but when you're dragging with the mouse, you know, because it's checking if we're currently in the temporary thing, and it's using this internal button state, right? So it definitely would make sense to abstract away the entire keyboard handling into a complete new class that is going to get very complex really quickly, but have this sort of intermediary, right? And to be honest, to do the same thing with the mouse and maybe even combine them into one, because there's so many funky things to do with the mouse. For example, simulated multiple events for the same event, you know, on touch, or not getting down events from a previous interaction, but then getting a second up event and things like that. It would be nice to abstract those away, you know, and force correct event ordering, you know, an FSM. I think in this case it is, because those are the only keys that matter, right? Because letters don't matter in the pen tool already, you know? And by ignoring only the number keys, I don't interfere with any hotkeys either. So I think this is a very minimal and very correct solution in this case, I believe. So ultimately, you know, this is the syntax, right? I could get rid of the function, make this an arrow function if I didn't need this to accept the name. No, I'm okay with this. So I think this is fine. If I do this, now let's look at, and it's also, besides the point, it's also like a feature I don't mind adding to script here to add the support for regular expressions. So this is 2637. So go back in here. So it's basically adding this little support for regular expression. The only thing I'm not sure about here is you cannot pass an event to a regular expression, right? So right now I'm just doing this because when I experimented earlier, for example, Control-Shift-A gives the key A event, but like you can see, it gives the key A event.code, but then the letter is not an A, it's an A with an apostrophe, with an accent, right? Which, to be honest, it's pretty bad. But then I think a regular expression could easily handle that, you know, searching for key A and accepting also A and all that stuff. So I think for now that's fine. So that's the only change here. And then on the pen tool, I just refactored that because that I know is going to interfere with the edit tool. Oh, and let's get rid of, so I can get rid of that deselect now. This guy here, just get rid of that. We added the key handler. Oh, this was just for debugging, right? So, because all it does for this selection, it actually just makes it transparent. So you don't see it, which feels a bit cheaty, but, you know. Yeah, I refactored the get input RC and that's it. All right. So now, what I want to be able to do is I want to have a selection here. Let's say I'm doing this, but then I realize, oh, wait, I want to put a number in. And then I can do that. And then I can go back there. Instead of having... Shift space is a bit awkward. Like, especially if you don't have the replay tool on. Often from this... I often puzzle in the center mode, right? So I might be doing this. And I say, oh, I want to put the 3 in. And then I realize I'm in the wrong mode. Oh, wait. Yeah. And then previously I would have lost the selection by that point. And it's just annoying. All right. That's it. And I'm still just stabilizing for this release. Like, I don't want to add major features. But I think stuff like this is, especially I think this is a regression compared to something I did. And, you know, proper is a word that is very dear to my heart, but it's also a word I'm I'm trying to unlearn, because I don't know if there's such a thing. I think there are more and less painful solutions usually. That's usually what happens. Did I give it an issue? Yeah, I think that's the issue that I created. So we can do the version here, the issue description here, and then the fixes syntax. I don't remember. What does it look like? This. So this fixes number 11, and it is version 0. Oh man, I'm surprised it's not a meme yet that I'm afraid of version 1. 0.163.18. I don't know if I've ever seen such an atrocity in something that doesn't include build numbers. All right, that's it. Oh, I should have closed these first. Ah, shoot. What did I do? Uh-oh. Unsafe changes. Oh, okay. The unsafe changes are identical to the safe changes. Good. So, done. Ah, top grid margin. I think that's something we can probably squeeze into this release. So, let's have a look at this. So what I'm referring to is this spacing. And I don't know if it shows up on responsive. Yeah, it does. You see how the top space it looks too big? And I think the problem is that I'm spacing it in unscaled units in the layouting system. All right, so let's see if we can fix that. And I think, the way I use my phone is that I have the YouTube, on Android you can do split screen. So I have the YouTube video at the top, in the top quarter. And then the remaining size of the phone is almost the perfect size to have a maximum board. Except for this spacing, which in some puzzles just makes the puzzle elements a bit too small. And especially puzzles with larger grids, it's already too small. But with that space gained, I think it might be good enough for, 90% of the use cases. The problem is, the layouting algorithm is complicated, and I hate touching it. That's why I haven't improved it yet, and why I haven't done a layout refactor yet. All right. I don't even know why there's a Resize too. Don't ask me right now. So Resize board, I believe, and let me check my stream layout. I'm gonna put the console on this left side. Because to be honest, I need to look at the console more than that thing. And where is my thing? There we go. All right, refresh. So, resize board, left top width. So what I want to know now is board left, board top. So, console.log. Board top, and I need to compare it to all the other rubbish on the screen. So let's see, we have board margin. I don't even know what the board margin, where it comes from, what it does and all that. And I think the bounds that I get passed in here, and let's do something smart with these. So if I do this, and I'll do object.values bounds.map and math.round n, I think this might be a little bit easier to read. And then resize board menu height, that's what I wanted to see. And then we have 0.5 times minimum margin. Board size minus... Wait, and let's look at board size as well. Board margin is not defined. Board margin. It's local. All right. So let's clear this. And let's see what happens. Let's clear it again, see if I can... Actually, you know what? Can I just call Resize... What happens here? App Resize board. Let's just do a warning here, get the stack trace. And then just manually call whatever function calls it. So it's framework.app.resize. Okay. Actually, we can leave this a warning. So do this, clear that, framework.app.resize. We just do this to get the information, right? So we're calculating the board size. Now the board size here is calculated from so we have a minimum margin of 5% of the board size. The board size is the minimum of the width and height. Because I'm doing a bit of a screwy thing. So basically I have, you might have noticed in the HTML, I have a div for the cells, but it's actually not used for anything except the automatic resizing. So I'm relying on the HTML resizing algorithms to figure out, kind of lay out the board. Then I take that size and I translate it to a scaling on the SVG, and then I have a percentage transform, right? But I'm applying all sorts of margins and stuff. And the other problem is that the SVG has potentially positive and negative elements, right? So the 0, 0 is actually the top of the grid. So I have to actually move it according to the margins. And there are boards, there are asymmetric boards that have only elements on one side of the board, which then cause, one sec, let me show you. For example, something like this. And I should do like some test puzzles with like extreme items like that. This one is a good one because this has only on the top on the left. So there is a bit of a margin down here, but that margin actually gets reduced if there are elements there, because usually when there's elements, those elements have some white space built in, you know. And in fact, you see the board, how the board touches the right side but not the left. So it internally removes the margin on the left because it knows there's elements there, and those elements naturally add some sort of margin already. But then the SVG is actually kind of centered, you know, which makes the grid not centered. It's a bit of a mess. And I moved it to the bottom when I started working on mobile. So it gets moved downwards. And then the spacing to the controls is, yeah, so we have this forced margin here around this diff, which is the gain, no, which is the board. So that top and bottom margin, I think those are they half a cell? Top. So that's the translation of the board. Yeah, so the board itself is... I can just move them there. It's interesting that it's... the width and the height are the same. 656, right? 656. But then on the height, we have those extra bits, which I'm guessing are either coming from the flex formatting, because I don't see any margins or padding or anything applied. Oh, I hate this. Like, it's giving this purple shading. Does anybody know what the purple shading stands for? Because it doesn't seem to correspond with anything in here. Because that's just this size, but this size is square. Is that... and it's not reading as a padding. So the grid is exactly where the grid is. the cells are that space, but then the SVG is, you know, positioned accordingly. And the board, yeah, so the board is specifically put in a particular position here with the left and the top. All right, let's go back to our internal numbers here. And that's what I wanted to do as well. I started a branch on that. Basically, I wanted to decouple the calculations from the rendering, right? So I basically wanted to have some functions that say, hey, put it in these places, right? And then I have a function that says, given these dimensions, create the dimension the board needs to be, and then call the other function to put it in that place. But then once I've separated those two things and untangled them, it now means we can replace either one, right? So for example, I was saying, hey, you know, I'd like to have a drag handle to move it up and down. Or for example, there's no use having large buttons when the cells are small. You have to press buttons just as much as cells. And to be honest, the cells should be larger than the buttons, because the buttons you just press, cells, you might have to press the corners of them or whatever. So there's no point ever having the buttons larger than the cells, for example, right? All right, let's clear that and let's call it. So we have these boundaries, and that's left, top, and width. Board top, menu height is 40. The top is 52. Now it says 52. But it looks like it's much further down, so it's not like... Because the difference from 52 to 40 is only like a quarter, and it doesn't look like it's down by a quarter relative to the rest. That the available white... What does that mean, that sentence? The available white what? So now I have to figure out if this top part, available white space. But why is it available? Why isn't it aligned at the top, right? It doesn't tell me that. It's very strange anyways. All right, so one of the issues I have here is that if the menu is 40 and the top of the bounds is 52, it should only be a quarter of the width further down, but it's obviously much further than that. So it's using this to calculate, and actually what I would like to do is, let's create a div with these dimensions and just place it there, right? So let's do a let e1 equals create style. Let's do something like this. Position absolute. Top 20. Top 20 px. Left 52 px. Width 467 px. Now that's already a different dimension than what the board has. So it'll be interesting to see what this actually represents then. Height. And let's get some syntax highlighting in here. And background of C006. Something like that. And then we can do parent document.body. Does that work? Don't know if that works. Nope. Framework. Does that work? It works, but it also doesn't work. e1.parent element. Position absolute, so it should be here. Style. Style. Is that not how I can pass style. Sorry, I forget how to use this. Is that container blue space centered vertically? I don't know. Maybe. It's probably not centered because in the other layout it will be off to the side. Where's create element? Create element. Create element. Style. Ops.style. Element ops.style. Element options. Create element. Ops.style. Ops. Is that just a pass-through property? It's very possible. I might have to pass this through as CSS. Yeah, maybe. Maybe like this. Hey, there we go. So this is obviously very different from what I would expect, right? Nope. Here. So 2052, 467, 467. So that's the referent bounds. Now if I put something at that place, and we can probably just erase this as well and put it back, it's off to the side. So there's something screwy happening here. And it's much higher. Ah, wait. No. These are mixed up. This is in the order of left top. So that's left. And that's top. Something like that. And then width and height in this case are... where were we looking here? Left, top, width, height. Yeah, so those are correct. All right. Yeah, this bugged me too. Okay, all right. So you see that the spacing we're using, but then it gets pushed down. So the reason that space at the top appears seems to be mostly a limitation on the width here. So it limits the width to here, and the space at the top is just because it aligns it with the bottom. Where the problem then appears is if I reduce that space, yeah, you see, why doesn't the board get a bit wider and a bit taller? And let me just copy that in case I need it again. So, bounds is now 70, 50, 367, 367. And the width and the height is square, even though the puzzle is not... Well, actually, it would be square, because the top and the left extra areas probably even out. Alright, so the problem here is that it's limiting the width, and I don't know exactly why. Let's find out. So, board size, minimum margins. The board size is calculated from game bounds. With some caveats. Okay. Game bounds. So, game bounds. Let's do a version of the game bounds thing here. So the game bounds are... And let's move these to the back. We don't really need them there. Just put them there. Make this a 0, blue one. All right, so we put this at, I just want to visualize these now. So game bounds are at 0, 40, get my X's and Y's not confused, 507, and 657 height, 657, and 507 width. So where is that? Okay, that seems excessive. Did I get something wrong here? Document dot style. Hey, no. Client width. Nope. Dot body dot client width. Okay, so these bounds are the bounds of the entire area. And then the board size ends up being... How does the board size get all the way down to 387? So... something is getting lost here along the way. So width is... And the aspect ratio is coming in here as well. The X and Y we're not too interested right now. So just do this, call resize. What do we see? Aspect is 0.58. So width, height. Width. The minimum of the height and the width. Game bounds.height. So the game bounds should be first here. The game bounds are 507 and 657. And the aspect ratio comes from width and height. Am I calculating the aspect ratio incorrectly here? 1 second, let me just double check Twitch. I feel like I might have lost a few viewers from Twitch because there were 2 people popping in on Twitch, but Restream, yeah, isn't doing too well today. So we have a min aspect and max aspect. Let's have a quick look at these. Min aspect 1.7, max aspect 2.1. How do we end up with a... because it's probably the inverse of that. So we're in a portrait orientation. So then it's max aspect, right? And, sorry, 1 over. Oh, I'm starting to think my minimum aspect here is at fault. So the actual aspect here, that's the actual aspect, right? So min, and if we call it actual aspect, we can do this, and we can do this. All right. So actual aspect is 0.77. And the minimum for 1.3. So it's quite squat. Why do we have a minimum of 1.7? Is that really... I'm trying to remember why I implemented it this way. Because then the keypad gets smaller in comparison. The thing is, that's not really... That still doesn't explain it, though. Because... this could still be bigger, right? So it's not just the aspect ratio. It's the space that it thinks it has available. So Resize board gets these pushed in here. So Resize board gets bounce coming in. And if I do this and make this a template string, and use something like math.round bounds, dot left, right, so top, and then we have width and height, something like that. So if I do this, and that's not right. Background position absolute. That is not right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Give it an ID. ID board, Resize board, bounds. And what we'll do before that is document.query selector all, or yeah, dot for each dot remove. Right. Resize board bounce. Does that not get these out? Maybe this will. There we go. All right. I'll get there eventually. So these are the bounds we're giving it. So they're already too small. So let's see if we can increase those. So we're having half min margin. So let's get rid of anything in here for now. Anything inside the resize bounds function. I gotta de-spamify my logs a little bit because right now I can't read them. So we have, these are the bounds. The menu height is 40. Because there's a problem also that it might be looking in the wrong coordinate space, right? Because we have a scaled coordinate space, and we might have space in one, but not in the other. So the red space is board size. And we can also do, we'll also do something like, because it's adding a bunch of margins and stuff, so I'm curious what it looks like without these, without the margins. Resize, we call this resize board size. And we'll do this with the blue color, no, green color. And we're actually going to set this to these as our left and top. So we're going to use the same left and top that we're calculating from here. But now the width is going to be, so it's basically just adding the margins in. Even that seems a bit small. Okay. So board size is, so I think this is already getting us too small of a value. Yeah, I don't know why I should be putting board size up here. All right, let's do this again. Board size 386. And we're starting from a 507 to 657, right? So we're taking the 507 and we got two aspect ratios, and we're calculating. So the width and the heights are, so the height is our full height, but our width is only 386. And the width got calculated from, and let's output orientation as well. But I'm hoping that this is portrait orientation. Well, hoping is great, knowing is better. Yeah. So we're looking at this formula here. And the actual aspect ratio is 1 second. All right, where was I? So the actual aspect ratio is 0.7. Minimum. These look inverted. So for portrait, we're doing width over height, which is the first one, and then one over. Okay, here they're switched over here. So the left side and the right side are, you know. So we're using width over height, which is the second column here. So it's 0.7 is actual, and we're forcing it into a 0.47. Now the thing with the aspect ratio is it actually is for the division of the keypad space versus the board space. That's what it's used for. That's why when I change the minimum and the maximum, the keypad gets smaller, which is not necessarily something we want. Although in this case, it looks like it might make sense to have it a little bit smaller. Because you see right now, like this, the keys are larger than the buttons. But at the same time, there's also nothing to be gained. It's just a bit of a pain. Basically what I'm doing is I'm putting a rectangle in the space. I'm not using the full vertical space here. So the top minimum margin is a bit of a problem. Like, I'm looking at the dark area here, and I'm wondering why there's this much white space at the top. Ah, yes. Okay, so the white space at... I'm guessing... Wait, the green area is a square area. Ah, and the square area has no margin at the bottom, so it ends up with a big margin at the top. But it does have a margin on the left and the right. So it's kind of... too many margins, basically. Although, even if I reduce the margins... What if I change this to be half, 0.25%, for example? How would that look? The thing is, I don't actually want to reduce the left and right margin, like the minimums. It's more like, what is it taking those margins against, right? I'm struggling to get my head around exactly what's happening, even though it's all in front of me and it's not super complicated. And every time I look at this code, I struggle, and that's why I've been staying away from it. And I remember when I wrote it, it was a bit of a head scratcher. But then, other apps are struggling with the layouting as well. Yeah, because here in the other mode, the left and right kind of matters. I'm pretty sure one of the problems is that the margin at the top I'm also seeing, like, if I'm looking at this, the green square actually exits the screen on the right, but not on the left. And there's like a bunch of safety things that are getting added. So there's this gap at the top. So these are all getting added in. And I think the minimum margins only make sense in certain modes. Like this, it doesn't make sense to have a minimum vertical margin. And like this, it doesn't make sense to have a, if you have a tall and like, I don't know. I mean, we could literally just make them 0, but then the board could touch the edges of the screen. And like this, we get a bigger board this way. Yeah, I guess that's really the problem, right? So maybe just changing this to be something less than 5%, let's say 1%. It is using Flexbox. It is using Flexbox. That's exactly what it's doing. It's using Flexbox, and then it's using that space to calculate the rest of it. The problem is you don't just want Flexbox. You need to decide the relative size of the keypad area versus the board area, and you don't want a huge area on a large screen. So on a very large screen, you want a big board. You don't want the same ratio as on a very small screen, right? In fact, what you really need to do is you need to compare the size of a singular button to the size of a cell. That's the real ratio. No CSS or Flexbox is going to help you there. But this, I think, might be better. Now, the question is, what will it look like, in a desktop-y environment? I think on the stream, the left edge of my screen is cut off, so... Yeah, you see, for example, now without that margin, we're actually getting digits sticking out over the top. Because it's not including the full size of the overhanging elements of the SVG. Because it's kind of assuming there's kind of white space in the SVG itself. And in fact, let's have a look. Nope. So if we look at the SVG, let me just in mobile mode. Yeah. And if we go into vertical. So in vertical mode, this actually screws us because we don't want to have an overlap. If we go back to 5%, yeah, that gives us that thing. But 5% is, of course, bloody arbitrary. And in fact, what is that 5% come to? Min margin is 23, which is a third of a cell. So it's like, I don't even know why the board size here doesn't actually include the whole board. So that's also a problem. So the game element is here. The board element is here. And like, it looks like the board element has some sort of padding or margin on it. The problem is all I'm seeing here is after our thing. Where does the board get its original position from? Wait a second. Background, red. Board. See you later, guys. With height. And transformed. Yeah, so this actually excludes the negative elements of the SVG. Yeah, that's the other thing. CSS is not very good at taking negative aspects of a CSS into consideration. Outline 10 px solid magenta. So this is position absolutely relative to the grid. Outline 20 pixels solid yellow. So that's an outline on the grid. So that's in a flex layout. And to be honest, I think it's the flex layout that's screwing me, because I don't fully know what it does, right? Wait a second. So if I get rid of the outline here, get rid of the outline here, what is it bumping up against? So the board is here. The game is here. So the game is starting underneath the menu bar, but then this container ignores that. So this is flex direction row, and this one is display flex. And the grid currently has a yellow outline on it. So game is here. Like, why does the board end up larger? Yeah, probably because the SVG is some sort of... but it's position absolute, so that doesn't actually make a difference. And as you can see, these aren't even aligned with the SVG right now. So this starts here and goes to here. Like, I don't even know how it manages to be so misaligned with everything else. Like, this is position absolute, so it shouldn't interact with the other stuff, right? Can get rid of that. So the game starts here, but why is the board here relative to the game? So that seems to be aligned to the bottom. So what's inside the game? The game has controls are here, and then the board is here. Ah, okay, wait a second. These are also loaded about. So these are also centered, right? So that's the native size of the controls. And they're, I'm guessing, positioned absolutely, the same as the board. What I don't understand is how the board ends up with that top margin. Position absolute flex, 100% line center. Like, does it think it's aligned centered? What you're describing is what I'm doing. I'm recalculating the sizes on Resize, and it works. It's just really hard to control because it's such a mix of trying to use the CTS flex stuff. And right now, for example, I cannot figure out where that gap at the top is coming from. And that's the problem with relying on CSS layouting. Often you have no control or even any information of where, why and where it does stuff, right? So does this thing doesn't have a margin or anything? No. So why, if this is position absolute, does it end up not touching the top? Ah, wait a second. So now the question is it touching the bottom? Like, how does it know to be square? Is it because of the contents here? If I just delete that, yeah, okay. So this internal grid is kind of inflating it like a balloon. Okay, and that grid has 64 by 64 pixel squares. It doesn't care about anything else. All right, I'm going to... this is always what happens, and then I end up not getting the job done because I'm trying to understand how it does what it currently does. So the real problem is, the only thing I really care about is this spacing. So what I could do is I could actually change the margin in portrait mode. So what if we only do that? Basically, I want to... Here, in this situation, if we have 0 margins, what would it look like? It wouldn't be a big deal. It would touch the sides left and right, and basically make the board as big as can be. And that's kind of what we want. And in fact, here we still have plenty of side margins, right? In fact, we still want to reduce these spacings here. In fact, we still have this massive space here. Like, how does this relate to this? So it's kind of offset. Yeah, so this thing still has this top margin here. Why? So we have this, we have the grid, we have the board, and the board has this top margin. So even without that margin, we still have this extra space at the top. And it could be that it's adding the menu height in units, pre versus post scale, etc. Let's have a quick look what the scale ends up being. Actually, we can see it here, 0.5. So if we change the scale to 1, it'll do this. Okay. What if we're gonna... where were we? Menu height. What if we do menu height? We multiply it by the scale. Menu height. Yeah, of course, because it needs to scale. The flex won't know how it doesn't scale SVG for me. I'm using the flex to get the initial size, and then I use that to transform the known board size to this to fit into that space. Is that a constant? That should really not be a constant. Did that do the trick? I forgot to remind myself what I was looking at. So right now the problem we have Is that space at the top? And I think menu height is already being used. So we might want to do this earlier. Menu height. Where's menu height being used? It's not being used here. So it gets used here. So let's do that here. All right. I think that... Yeah, I think it could be that the problem is that it's using menu height in terms of the root dimensions. And then later on it scales it to the dimensions in the scaled space. Or it could also be that the menu dimensions are just gibberish. That they don't actually make sense. So menu height, menu bounds. What do menu bounds actually look like here? Yeah, you do, because remember, the origin isn't where you think the origin would be. And if you scale it, the positioning is in the unscaled dimensions, right? So it won't scale correctly. In fact, the transform is just minus 50%, right? And I want to position it aligned to the bottom. A lot of things. I mean, if I started from scratch, maybe there would be a better way of flexboxing the original aspect, you know, but it also needs to work in landscape and thing, and it shouldn't be relying on the given value from the platform, right? So I want to have both landscape and, you know, it needs to be according to sizes, not according to media queries and all that sort of thing. So let's have a look at the menu bounds. So menu bounds are height 40, but are they really? So the menu, the top bar here, looks what exactly? So it's 40 high, but is that translated in any kind of way? No. And then menu height gets translated to 40. The problem is it could also be arbitrary. Like it could just, by halving it, it just could make it be better. Why is it not coming all the way down in this case? So it looks like this colored space is the same size as the board. We have the aspect ratio. And then we use that to calculate the W and the H over here. And this is based on game bounds. And our colored rectangle here is this stuff. Let me get rid of the other colored rectangle for a second. And add one for just the game bounds width and height in a particular place. So, before we're doing all this, we'll call this game bounds. And that will be game bounds.width, game bounds.height, and game bounds.x and y. Or is it left and top? No, it's x and y. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. So let's just make it square. So that's the square area of game bounds. And let's make that blue. And look, very faint so I don't block all the other stuff. So that's the square area. How do we get from the blue area to the green area via the aspect ratio? That seems a bit strange, right? So, and aspect ratios are done here. Let's see. Minimum aspect is 0.58. Maximum aspect is 0.47. And we're at 0.75. So we're changing the aspect to 0.58. And we're multiplying the aspect by the width. So but the width is this. We're calculating the x, y, width, height. And then somewhere here, board size becomes, where's board size being assigned? Here, minimum of width and height. So width and height, we have a 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. The 5, 6, 8 comes from the height of the game bounds, which is the full height, right? Which is obviously too tall. But then the width is the aspect ratio multiplied. Okay. So the minimum aspect ratio, or in this case, the maximum aspect ratio, I believe, is 5.8. So we don't want to go... So I'm not accommodating very fat devices. Okay, so this is designed to work on mobile phones. So here, actual aspect is 0.48. So we're just nearing the maximum aspect. And then it's kind of sticking to that. So that's the maximum aspect that we're catering for. And then here we are hitting... We're in between. And now soon we're gonna hit the minimum. All right. The point is, though, that doesn't even enter the equation at this point. Because we still have these extra spaces, right? And I still don't know why the board is marked for this position. All right. I mean, we can't go any bigger at this point because we're touching the left and the right side. So I think setting the margin to 0, if the orientation is landscape, makes sense. Does it make sense on desktop? That's the other question. I think it makes sense on desktop because we have that minimum maximum, yeah. So if you're getting super narrow, yeah. What if we add a tiny little margin, like 1%? I mean, a percent is potentially quite a large amount. So maybe 1% is actually too much. Or maybe 0.5%, something like that. I mean, at this point, 0.5% probably doesn't make a lot of difference here. In fact, well, how big is min margin? We're outputting it. It's 2 pixels. Yeah, it's 0.5%. It might as well be 0. I guess we could have a minimum absolute value. So, you know, like we have a 5 pixel margin or something. Yeah. So what if we do that? Just so we don't touch the edges. Because, yeah, we're looking at a certain kind of board here. But we also want to look at something. Yeah, you see here. But if we had a board without numbers around the outside, it could look very odd. We have a half, I think we have a half cell margins margin at all times anyways. All right. Now, if we do this only in portrait orientation, then we can do something like this. Equals landscape. Then this, else that. No, because we have the 5% in here. 0.05. Like that, and otherwise it's just 5. So we'll do this, and then if we go into this mode, we have the standard stuff. So then we shouldn't be overlapping the menu at the top. And we should get more utilization of the space, especially on kind of this kind of layout. I'm still concerned about that spacing at the bottom though. And if I compare, we have less of that at the bottom. So I think what's happening is it's taking the empty space inside the SVG up here, and it's kind of evenly distributing to the bottom, and then it ends up being too big. I think this was an attempt to actually center the board in that space. Yeah, but in the moment I'm not looking for the perfect solution. I'm looking for a small fix that I don't have to test for months and months and months. And rebuilding the layout system is in the books anyways. So if I can get it limited down to this one change, that would actually be nice. In fact, I might just do it this way around. So let's make sure I didn't touch anything else. I think I can just reset this here. Discard and reload and do this. And now I think in this sort of edge case where the puzzle basically fits into that space, it's a little better. There's still plenty of white space, especially on smaller phones where you know, the pixel scaling kind of screws you up a bit. So the problem is I can't actually test it here properly because it's bigger than you know, than when you have maybe with a tablet layout, because it doesn't show you the split screen effect properly, where basically you end up with spaces on the sides. So it's kind of like this then. I mean, you still have a bunch of space here, but you don't have that huge space on the top. And in fact, let's go to the Live app. To compare. Yeah, yeah, you see it's smaller, both the keypad and the thing, and it just has more space at the top, which is completely pointless. And then on desktop, it shouldn't be a big deal since, yeah, I mean, if you're doing a narrow view like that, you might want to have a little bit more margin, but it's not a big problem. And then the landscape, it shouldn't affect it at all. I'm okay with this as a sort of small improvement. I'll just have to playtest this a bit. And, you know, a full rebuild of the layout system is in the books anyways. All right, let's bump it. And label it. And come on. Improved white space in edge case mobile portrait layout. And that's 0.19. All right. Let's run updates. All right. I think... Oh, don't tell me it didn't save. Save changes? No. Okay. Close. Close. Done. Do we have any puzzles? Yeah, as well wait for them. Come on. Come on. Alright. That took a long time. And it wasn't even downloading anything. And we'll deploy this. Alright, so I think after this little bitty, we can actually go back to working on the editor. And, you know, since it's pretty late in the day and I've got my head full of other things, I think I'm maybe try, not work on like a tricky problem. Maybe let's kind of step out of the usual editor micro feature adding thing and let work on like a different section. Because we really need to start working on the kind of main stuff, like, the layout of the puzzle, changing the grid size and all that stuff. Right now, for example, I don't know what happens if I just resize the grid with data in it. That could be fairly catastrophic. So I'm kind of curious, actually. Let's see what happens. All right, as soon as this is deployed, we'll change branches. There we go. This is the editor section of the stream. So, we have an editor here. Let's reset. All right, so we don't currently have the sort of tabbing that I originally had imagined for this. So let's just sort of hack something in that we can use for the moment. So the idea is that this I don't know why I'm trying to squeeze everything in there. I shouldn't really, but basically I want to have a way of of having this space available as a main editor for the puzzle properties, like the size of the grid. So let's have a quick look at the old CTC editor. So we have, so here it updates immediately, for example. So I don't know. It doesn't do. It doesn't try to guess at regions only for square grid, which is interesting. And I don't know if there's there might be an algorithm for just figuring out a subdivision of the grid. I mean, what do you need? You need the same number of regions as you have cells in each region, right? So you need a square root, right? Something that has a square root. So. Let's see, something that has a square root. Well, 9 does, but... yeah, let's just see. SQRT. So we're looking, we have 81, right? So we can just say 8 times 8. So if I look at something like 64, and then convert that to being 4 times 8. Sorry, 4 times 16 or something like that, right? 4 times 8. That could be 4 zones of 8 cells. Yeah, no, 8 zones. So we could have 8 zones of 4 cells. No. How would we subdivide that? That's 32. I think we'd have to go all the way to 16 then. So that would be the same number. So then we can have... yeah, we can have... yeah, so this is like the bookmark, right? We would have 4x4 cells and all that stuff. It's interesting that once you click that, it doesn't let you go back. It's like, screw you, sucks to be you. All right. And I think I want to have some sort of tabbed UI or whatever. But for now, I'm just... I'm going to just hack something in there, right? So this is component inspector here. For which component? Attach. So this thing is getting replaced. So right now, component inspectors belong to a component. So if we make the board a component, maybe we can do it that way. Maybe we can implement the entire board as a component, of which there's just one. And that might make some stuff internally a bit easier. There's just... what happened? Ah, yeah. So let's have a look at that idea. So if we copy this, right? And then we'll call it, instead of an arrow component, we call it a puzzle component, right? Nope, not this one. This one, right? And then we kind of do this for now. I don't know which of these are actually required. Quite a few of them are, I think. All right, and then right now I'm just going to manually squeeze one in there. So handle puzzle loaded, open current puzzle, and then we'll just do .get component data, add component. So what if we do puzzle component and do that? What does that look like? It's not a function. Okay. Get component data. Puzzle component undefined. Get component. So we don't actually need that. We literally just need to add one. So if we say new component, and props would just be where do the props come from here? Component data properties. So it should be this or that? Cells. I think it should be this. Source puzzle. Basically. Okay. Get elements is not defined. And I believe the get elements and all that stuff is basically just gonna be, all of these are just gonna return nothing. Because, you know. So this elements, I think it should return an object. Or maybe we don't need it at all. Maybe it won't get called. But don't do that in the constructor. RC hit test, undefined or null object. So that obviously will fail on the puzzle component. But let's find out exactly how it fails. Puzzle component, RC hit test. 407. So that's probably in the shared code. And that should really not fail. So it looks at elements. So it looks for an array. So we can just initialize that to an empty array and then it should work. All right. I'm just having a quick look if anybody popped into the other chats. It's a pity the other streams didn't work, so I don't know actually, something screwed up there. All right, well, so, okay. So it doesn't blow up immediately, that's a good start. Can I select it here? So if I can do that, maybe I can go through the standard inspector stuff and you just select the puzzle as if it's any of the components, right? So if I do this and click on puzzle component, okay, it gives me a thickness. And I can do stuff, right? And then I can potentially do other things. So So we can probably do a couple of these things, right? And just get rid of the content because, you know, most of this stuff will not apply. None of these actually will. I mean, I could say, oh, if you click anywhere else, but no. For now, I just want this. Okay. And that causes update inspector, update props, etc. All right, all right, all right. We need a two-dimensional input thing. So I think this one, kind of the size one here, we can just use that. So that would be board our grid, called grid. And then instead of width, we call that rows. Rows. Calls. Grid. Rows. Calls. And now I'm realizing we probably want to pass props in here. Ah, wait, the whole puzzle is our props. All right, so we might already have the props. So if I click here now. Oop. All right. And update inspector. So update inspector generally fills in the values in the inspector. Okay. So update inspector. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Output this. Yep. I don't know if I should width, height, rows, columns. I think I'm gonna stick with rows and columns for now because all the other references are rows and columns. So it's probably better to just stick with one nomenclature and not just switch one to the other randomly, you know. They're also X and Y. I mean, I might also call it width and height, I don't know. That's a finer detail. I'd be happy enough if I can get the editing working. All right, so we have the props here. So this obviously doesn't actually know the rows and columns. And we kind of calculate the rows and columns from this stuff. And this is like the raw data, so we don't really necessarily want to push this in here as props. So we might do some shenanigans up here. Let's actually have a look at the code that calculates the size of. I think it's this, right? Create cells. Rows, columns. Create puzzle. Rows, columns. Puzzle cells.length. Puzzle cells. Max apply. All right. Guess that's how it calculates the rows and columns. Yeah, because width height usually go width first, but in Sudoku notation you usually mention rows first, right? So rows usually very rarely do you see columns rows, right? It's always rows columns. Same with X and Y, so it's kind of inverted, which is sometimes a bit of a pain in the ass when you're translating from one to the other. I also updated which field it references, so it should still be correct. So if I call this puzzle, right? And then I can say let props equals, right? Or I can say something like puzzle to props. Puzzle. Do that in here. And then kind of say props equals this dot puzzle to props puzzle. Like that. And the rest here can execute as expected. This is going to be puzzle to props. Puzzle. Puzzle. Let. Here we're going to do a return this. And something like that. Yeah, don't worry about it. For future viewers, Astrid asked why she thought that I confused it because I relabeled width to rows when rows actually represents height. But I also relabeled which piece of data refers to. So I actually swapped, you know, I could have just done this as well and then switch them sort of correctly. Puzzle has already been declared. Puzzle has already been declared. 1379. 37. Yeah. Alright, let's change this to source puzzle. Source puzzle. Don't change that there. Alright. So, rows and columns are 9, as expected. And if I go to the editor now and click on puzzle component, these are not filled in correctly. Because it hits update inspector. Alright. It hits update inspector. And update inspector, without anything being passed in, should just do this, huh? Okay. So we should be able to say something like rows, and calls. Something like that, right? I click here. All right, I can do this. And it tries to update it. And right now it doesn't know what to do with it. Now, I don't know what to do with it. So it's going to be a bit tricky because right now I'm modifying internal data. And I'm mapping it to the SVG and I'm updating the puzzle data, but I don't think I'm not generating the final CTC data set, because the easiest thing obviously would be to rebuild everything from scratch using a new piece of CTC data. And maybe this is also the time to actually generate that new piece of CTC data. So we might actually do this here. Oop, I'm gonna have to wind it down soon. Hey guys, welcome back. So basically what I'm saying is that the other editor functions, let's say moving this, update the data stored in this component, and it updates the SVG, but it doesn't actually update the puzzle data as the app knows of it, right? And that's fine because there's actually no puzzle data associated with this, or with this, right? With the killer cases there is. So I need to eventually find a way of translating our changed data into data that the system understands. And that actually is a more urgent task than this. Now I'm thinking, should this be part of the puzzle component? Probably not, because all that data is elsewhere. So that should probably be in the puzzle editor. So what might be interesting here is to just start off with a p dot create CTC, create puzzle data. And because this is on my to-do list as well, because, you know, as I'm testing, I want to start saying, hey, you know, create a new link with that data in it. So, and we'll need that anyways because I think anything to do with size and so on, probably what we want to do is we want to generate the puzzle data, update it, and then redraw the whole thing, just reload the whole thing. Because like extending the grid without pulling the stuff out is gonna be, you know. So I don't know if the puzzle editor dot, is that a function here? Yeah, this puzzle editor is actually not accessible. Tool editor, here we go. Dot create puzzle data. We can run that here. And that hits us here. And so there's two things. One thing would be, can we regenerate the data just by serializing our components? Which will be true once we've actually got components for everything. So for example, right now, none of the metadata is in there and all that sort of thing. And two, do we want to kind of do a half and half merge stuff together? Or do we want to handle everything through the components? Because like our puzzle component could potentially handle metadata and all that stuff. Excuse me. So we're going to output these just like we do here for reference. But now I also want to look at the components. So manager. Don't actually know what the manager holds in store for us here. I'm trying to remember, right? So the manager has a list of components. And I think the props are probably what we want to look at. But we might actually use to JSON, and then we should be able to just stringify the whole thing, perhaps. Let's try it. I mean, right now it's not going to work, but it'd be interesting to see where exactly it fails. Array, object with constructor array. So it could be that some of these components have more data in their props than we really should leave there, right? So let's do it. Let's do them one by one. So we have a little bit more control over what happens when. So we have a component here. Then we have the props here. Oops. And then we have the JSON here. We probably want to double indent these. And okay, so that all works. So I think what we want to do then is have a toJSON in our base component. Yeah, we have a toJSON in the base component. Okay, why is it not executing that? If I just do this. Why does that fail and this doesn't? That's weird. Command props. JSON. We have two JSONs here. I'm not seeing two JSONs. Did I not refresh yet? Ah, here we go. So, circular structure JSON. Starting an object with constructor puzzle component property manager. But puzzle component inherits from component. So puzzle component should have a toJSON function. And it returns its own name. Ah, no, that's toString. It's... it should look only at props. Which... Which should be perfectly fine. Does this not call toJSON? Or am I miscapitalizing toJSON here? Geez. JSON stringify to JSON. Does that actually use toJSON? It should, I believe. If the value has a JSON, it's responsible to define what data will be serialized to JSON. If an object is being stringified, it has a property named toJSON, whose value is a function. Then the toJSON method customizes JSON string for version of the object being serialized. The value returned by the JSON method when called will be serialized. JSON stringify calls toJSON with one parameter. The object is a property value, property name. Property value, property name. This is an array. The index of the array as a string. It's an empty string. Okay. So, toJSON over here. Thing is, it doesn't even look like it's hitting toJSON. Uncaught error. Object with manager, object with constructor component manager. So, oh wait, what? What's it saying here about the puzzle component? Base constructor, extend, puzzle component, component. Arrow component, extends component, arrow component. What? Starting at object with constructor, puzzle component, property manager. Doesn't this have a toJSON function? Does the toJSON function not inherit? Serialized circular references. Yeah, it doesn't support object reference operation. We use as JavaScript. Historic JSON was a completely strict subset of JavaScript. Literal code points. String literals and property names JSTech, but they cannot introduce no content in JavaScript. Only using you. JSON. toJSON prototype inheritance. Oh, should inherited object. Yeah, okay, here we go. Value replaces with JSON has text string options. I have a feeling it's not executing. And do the others have all toJSON? So let's do this actually, so we can see what it does for the other components. Let's just wrap this. Then we can see because it's not getting past this one component because all the other it's first component on the list, right? So it's failing on all of them. Okay, so what I'm suspecting is that toJSON is not being inherited. And is this supposed to be a class function or a JSON stringify method converter? Okay. Stringify, parameters, yada yada yada. Find toJSON. If the value has a toJSON method, it's responsible to define what data will be serialized. And as far as I can tell, I don't think I saw any hits on our little toJSON method here. Component toJSON, component props, center, yada yada yada, error. They're all erroring. Does not preserve any of the not owned properties of the object. Have a look at the interesting discussion about other drawbacks, possible workarounds here. I called hydrogen. toJSON prototype. JSON stringify toJSON prototype. toJSON. And it's all capitalized. No, it's not. Oh, of course it isn't. Ah, we have a serialized function. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, you see. Where's the serialized function from? Ah, no, it's ancient history. All right. All right. This is going to be crazy noisy. I do this. Hey, Andy. Hey, Astrid. Do you see anything? Oh, no. Okay, sorry. Every now and then I look at my chat and I feel like I've missed a bunch of messages. All right, so it actually does this. Now, this is not what we need because it just gives us a bare array and it doesn't put them into the right places and all that stuff, right? So we probably want something that looks more like this. So there's always a bunch of stuff to do for cells, to pull out givens and all that sort of thing. So let's see if we can first do something with the other parts of data, with the other aspects here. And then something like videos and metadata, maybe we can actually have a videos component. Maybe. Because, yeah, like there might be components for stuff that aren't visual, and then you still have an inspector and you can add multiple videos and all that stuff and hints and all these other small aspects. So what we don't have here is we don't have a good filter of where these come from. And currently, the components themselves are responsible for finding their own elements, right? But later on, we obviously need to be able to pull this back together. So this part of the thing needs to actually know about that. And we might want to create a better API for this later. So because I'm envisioning components getting added externally. So this thing shouldn't need to know about the components, right? There should be some kind of, the component should tell it where it goes, or better even, now I'm thinking the component should inject itself into the puzzle. Yeah. So we can do something like let puzzle data equals yada yada yada. And then we'll do something like puzzle data here. And then we're actually going to do component dot add to puzzle. Or serialize to puzzle. Right? And we'll put that up here next to this. We can do, you know, we can make this, let's make this a generic serialization here. Serialize to puzzle, data, data, return data. And we'll just call it serialize, not serialize to puzzle. Keep it simple. And we pass puzzle data in. And then, right, we get this sort of thing going on. Or get this for a second, for a hard second. And then we can now one by one add these to the components, and the components figure out how to get themselves into the right shape. So this we can do something. Right? Puzzle data. Sure. Why is our name lowercase? Don't know. Puzzle component. Ah, no, wait. Serialize, serialize. Oh, up here. Puzzle component serialize. All right. And then we can do object.assign data. Well, basically for now. And puzzle data rows, columns. Sure. And now if we look at things like, let's start with something simple-ish. All right, overlay component. All right. These are all the overlay components. All right. And if we compare these to what was in the original puzzle, overlays, they should be fairly similar, right? Center, width, height, border, background, yada, yada, yada. In fact, they should be the same. One sec. Okay, I lifted the whole table. So we can use the to_JSON here. And we can just do data.overlays equals data.overlays or let's just be explicit. If data.overlays equals undefined, data.overlays equals this. And then we'll just do dot push this dot to JSON. And we probably, for the puzzle data later on, we'll probably do something similar. Just a little bit more subtly. And puzzle data thing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all this spam. And we're going to print out the puzzle just above that. So we can more easily compare it. So we're going to put these here. And then we're going to get rid of this and this. Okay. And we probably want to get rid of this and this. So we started with this and we ended up with this. And so far, yeah. So this, obviously, we don't have the rows columns thing going on here. So we'll, yeah. That would have been too easy, wouldn't it? So there'll actually be something else. Let rows calls this props. And for now, we're just going to do the same thing here. So data.cells equals new array number of rows, right? And then or let r equals 0, r smaller than rows plus plus. We'll do cells. Actually, I'm just gonna one-liner this. New array 9, turn it into an array dot map do this. And that gets mapped to an empty object. And that should give us an array of arrays of objects. Nope. Dot map, yada yada yada. Go down one level. Why does the map not work here? Oh, it wants that one, doesn't it? It wants more braces. All right. There we go. data.cells equals rows calls all right, and we don't even need that. So if I now compare the cells with the cells from the source puzzle, they look pretty similar. So if we do this now on a puzzle with actual givens, say this one, oh, that is not in our local host. Right? Put that in here. What do we get? All right, so just catching up on some chit chat on the Discord. So here we have a larger number of cells, but more interestingly, the incoming cells have givens, right? So the givens, we probably actually want to pull straight from, well, yeah, I don't actually have givens editing yet, so for now I can just pull them straight from the app. We can just do grid. And the grid has cells, but to be honest, I think, yeah, we can do that. So we can do something like data.cells for each row dot for each, and let's call R. No, there's a row and a row index, and then for each row we got a column and a column index. No, we have a cell. Don't worry, I'm as confused as you are. We have an R, a C, and a cell. Oop. And oop. Yada, yada, yada. And we probably want to look at that as well. R, C, row column, right? Yep. Let's keep it consistent. Nope. Grid dot cells. And we have all of that. And we probably want to get, let's see, create classic prop get given. That's probably what we want to do. Or we can probably do puzzle. Wait, frame or .app.puzzle.get cell dot grid dot get cell 1 2 boom. All right, dot get cell. Just, I guess that's in case I ever abstract away how it's stored underneath. Prop get given. There we go. Don't know why this one takes a while to render or load or something. So we can do a couple of things here. Let given if given is not undefined, then cell.value was given. And that's just, you know, a start. And then in the future we can add things like corner. I'm just putting something in here to have the kind of basic framework in place for serializing this data. And the first row now looks like this with a value 9 here. And in the source puzzle, it looks like this with a value 9 here. All right. And then other metadata like ID and stuff, we kind of manually have to pull it out. So for example, this might be, you know, rows and columns. And what was this? Puzzle to props. Puzzle to props. So we can probably do let ID cell size equals puzzle. And then we'll just put those in there as well, kind of as raw, for now, as raw values. And then we'll do the same thing on the reverse. So ID ID we'll do if ID data ID equals ID, if cell size, yada yada. It almost feels like this should be an object assign type thing. Okay, and serializing, and it's not too bad. So we have overlays here. We don't have regions. Regions, yeah, we need to carry those over for sure. Lines might work in a similar fashion to the overlay components. So what we've done here, maybe we can do that with a line component as well. And we can just do lines like that. And ta-da, we have lines. How do they compare with the original lines data? And then once we have this data assembled with the updated information, so for example, if I can go and move this line and now serialize it, that line should now be updated. So if I pop all these lines open and look at their waypoints, so annoying. 081845557082. So here, this is a diagonal line, right? And that's the only diagonal line. So that definitely works. Sweet. Now we can't change line color yet. It's not in the inspector. But that should work in the same way then, once we get to it. Okay. And what else are we missing? So lines, overlays, regions, underlays. Do we have underlay components in here yet? I think the underlay components are actually built as overlays. So that might be a bit of a mishap there. Actually, no, wait a second. I think, yeah, the underlay inherit from the overlay. So it should be able to do this. Oh, inheritance to the rescue, I guess. It's kind of nice. Get that for free. Don't really need those. Yada yada yada, puzzle data, and we have 2 underlays, and we started out with 2 underlays, and they look the same. Cool. So underlays, ID thing. So regions are a bit of a tricky one because we don't currently have region editing. So regions kind of, they might just inherit from cages perhaps. Let me add that as a thing. Basic. I'm not gonna do this here. I'm gonna do this here. Add regions as subtype cage. A region is kind of like a cage without a value. Now, what we should be able to do from this is to generate a CTC link. Right? Right? He asks. Let's see how quickly we can pull this together. I did a thing recently where I like figured out how to generate the CTC links from, but I already forgot, from FPuzzles links. So we're just gonna look at where the CTC links get loaded. Filter classification. Start. If puzzle match CTC, save decode, yada yada, fix CTC, CTC puzzle data uncompressed, unzipped, decompressed puzzle. Okay. So we need to reverse all of this. So we need to take CTC data. So we'll do so we need puzzle zipper.zip data. And uncompressed puzzle data. Unzip. I think that works on a string, but it might have dual capabilities. CTC data. Yeah. Okay. So that it does its own zipification. We might as well just edit it straight into here. So we have the zipper. Then we want to compress it. Right. Then we want to so the uncompressed data comes from encode fixed CTC data. And I think all we need to do is then encode URI components. Wait, this is not correct. All right, I'm gonna finish the stream very soon. So if you want to tell me something, now is the time. So if we do this, put that in there. Actually, let's put that there. And we do this. Will that open? Yes, it will open without the regions. Okay. Puzzle component. So we can generate the link here. So let CTC equals CTC plus log plus ctc data. Your Java knows. I think you should see a doctor about that Java knows. So we do this, and then we'll do this. Then we click that. Two. Guys, what do you think? All right, where's our test puzzle? Test puzzle. All right. So if we have this puzzle here, right, and we'll go a bit crazy, and we'll... No, this is actually not a good one because it's most arrows, and I'm not handling arrows yet. In fact, I haven't done cages yet either. All right, let's stick with this one. Yes. I know it's a cop-out. All right, let's put the circles over here and the WWW over here, and that C goes in the corner. And then this line, we're just going to put that there. We're going to add a point just to test, you know, how it handles lines getting edited with multiple points and all this. And we can do this. And that 10 can go over here, right? And now we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And yada, yada, yada. New link, new puzzle. So that actually seems to work just fine. The WW is in the right place. The C is in the right place. Yep. So we obviously don't support regions yet, and we have to serialize everything, but that's a good step forward. All right. Okay, guys, I think that's where I'm gonna call it a day. Let's just clean up the code a little bit. And let's add something. If I'm trying to think, can I do this? If I do this, will that work? No. Chrome console relative link clickable. Can I make a clickable link that's relative to the current domain? I mean, to be honest, I'm just working on... screw it. I'm only working localhost, so it really doesn't make sense to do that. So, test link. All right, let's try it with something like this. And I'm gonna put these there, and put this one there, put this one there, and change the size. Position the size. Ooh. Like that, like that, like that, and like that. We don't even have colors for these yet. And now we serialize it. Nope. You serialize it, create a new link, and that looks correct to my silly eyes. Let's see. Yeah, we've got new positions for things. That looks like it's working. Sweet. All right, let's do a quick cleanup because I have a bunch of logging data here that we don't want necessarily to have there. Don't need that, don't need that. Just that. Don't need that. Yeah, for now, that's fine. Okay. 4 to 3. Let's get rid of this. Serialize. Yeah, that's fine. And it's fine. What did oh yeah, because we renamed it. All right, that's fine. We have this serialize, we have this serialize. Serialize. We deleted that, that's fine. We added the puzzle component. Let's add some, let's clean up some stuff in there. Probably don't need that, probably don't need that. And probably don't need that. Yeah, probably want that. And do we have some more noisy logging? Don't think get elements is relevant. Let's just quickly check that. We We probably don't need to log that out either. Oh, do we have a log up here? Nope. So open current puzzle and handle tool editor attach element. Let's get rid of that. 1536. Don't really need that. Create puzzle data, that's fine. Handle tool enter. 1588. Here. Puzzle has attached. Yeah, I think this is old stuff. We don't need that anymore. All right. Okay. I think that's actually adding to our diff, but that's fine. We added, okay, so we added the puzzle component, we added serialization, and created some basic infrastructure that can let us create a new puzzle link from the data in the editor. So that's actually pretty good. Was it? Uh-oh. You sure about that? Kind of hard to replicate that now, unless it happens again. You're right. No, wait. So let's align it with a corner. And it's centered now. Okay. So I think there is a misinterpretation between center and or the size is relative to the corner rather than the center. 1 second. So if I go full width here, right? So it's exactly between the two. Okay. And is it in the right? So it's one column up. So I think what's happening is this is doing it relative relative to the center, and the other one is doing it relative to the top left corner. And I think it translates one to the other. Let's try something. So let's move this here. And let's make this... Nope. Let's make this half a cell larger. And... yeah. Because I think in this editor, it actually operates like that. So if I create something like this and I scale the size up, so if I make it 1 and then 1.5, it scales relative to its center. So I don't actually like that. But for now, we want the correct data. We don't want to be confused about what data we're getting. And I don't actually know if it's... because it's obviously putting it in the right place. So for example, this is in row 1, column 1. And then this is in 0.5, I imagine. All right, let me just try my theory here. So overlay component, update props width. So basically what we want to do is we have a delta width. So we have yes, we can calculate a delta width. Like that. You're quiet, Mark, but then when you say something, you give me more work to do. No, it's good, it's good, it's all good. So width 0.5. So we start... So we go from 51 to 1, for example. So let's delta width equal... So if we're going from 1 to 2, we want to be this minus that. Okay. So if I go bring this guy here and I add point, I just scroll wheel it up. Delta width. Oh god. Yeah. All right. Whatever. So row, we're gonna do it like this. So we're gonna update column. So it's gonna be center 0. And, or can I just do, we're updating width. Width is columns. And it's going to be center 1 minus and we probably want to do this to the delta as well. Right? Minus 0.5 times delta width. So in other words, we bring this down here, and then as I make it bigger, it's completely ignoring me. It could also be that nested update props are not possible. Okay, clear it, and boom. Column, row, column, center. Yeah, the row and the column are not updating. So this nested execution with set_dirt and update inspector probably is not working well. So we have a couple of options. You can pull this in here and do this afterwards. We can... I have a feeling that the update inspector overrides something I might be doing in here. Like, why does it not update column here? Center. Width. So it doesn't get to here at all. What? Call. It hits this. This goes to here. Update. Center. It's not hitting this line. Oh, because half of that... Ah, because it gets rounded. Ooh. Yeah, no. No, we can't do that. we can't round it here. Oh. Oh. Yeah. So if we do this now, and then create a link and create a new puzzle, it's not quite in the right place. It's slightly better, but it's not right. Wait a second. So let's get this one here, and this one here. And if I create a link now, these look all right. If I make this and do that, and it's not quite right. It is not quite right. I'm wondering if there's something else I need to move. I'm moving it by 0.5 times delta, right? So it appears to change width from the center here. So for example, now it's 3 cells, but in the meantime, it's actually gotten shifted over. So if I now do this, oh my god. What is the difference here? I definitely have to change the center. And I should have to change it by half of the difference in the width. So the center stays in the same place, except I'm moving the center. So this is a little nasty. Because this is obviously not the center. Yeah, because I'm moving it by the delta of the center change here. This is gonna get... Yeah, and that's probably why I'm doing this, because when I'm moving the center, I'm not positioning it in an absolute sense, right? In fact... And one of the problems is that there's multiple elements involved that might be at slightly different positions. And the change in width, delta width, props that width to fixed, parse float, delta width, parse float, delta width. How about we don't parse float this and just do what's happening here? So it could also be some weird rounding issue. Okay. And no, it's shifted by 1 cell over. So this should start over here. And it starts all the way over there. Alright, I won't be able to fix that now. I don't know if I should normalize to one coordinate system or another, or do the translations like I'm trying to do them here. The problem is I'm not just resizing one element, I'm resizing multiple elements, and that might not be correct, because I'm resizing them by deltas rather than by percentages, which might not be correct. And in fact, like, for example, text doesn't get resized the same way as a box would, right? The text should just get moved. So resizing of these elements is actually not trivial. So for now, I'm not going to do this at all. And I'm going to just put a note in here. Fix me, adjust center position according to new size. And I'm gonna undo this. Fix me must be able to use arbitrary positions. All right, let's see how much log spam we've introduced. We can clean up quickly. Spacing around that, it'll show up nicely. All right, I think that's fine. Yeah, well spotted, Mark. All right, well, there's so many other things missing, so it's not really too concerning. For example, you know, oh, that's not, yeah. So for example, if I do this, if I go back to here, that in here, yeah, and then I can go to yada yada yada, find the cage component, say yada 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 some more, and magically, ooh, this is a big one. Cages. I don't think actually it was the cage components. Yeah, because there's another one that's completely missing, which is arrows. Wait a second, why does... Wait a second. 1541. Oh, the feature stuff. Ah, okay, that's actually a different issue. So this .toJSON in overlay. Yeah, so stuff like that should actually be filtered much earlier, because it should never even be in props in the first place. But I'm hoping that some of these components I actually might backport into the main app and use them for just parsing incoming data and kind of structuring it a bit. Overlay component, return, object, let JSON equals object dot assign this dot props, return JSON, and delete JSON dot feature. Yes. Now that won't have any cages in it, right? But cage component to serialize cages this dot to JSON, maybe. Oh, that's interesting. What does the cage data look like? Cages, array, okay, so it doesn't have any of that stuff. Okay, let's use the same thing here. So JSON, and we'll actually do something else. Cells.parse. Find parse. RCV. Parse. parse, 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 parse. Dot cells. Nope. Cells. Parse cells. Ah, so we can actually use cages. So so what we actually want to do is JSON.cells equals this.cells.map row call to r row c call, and that's it. Nope. Cages. Cells. Oh, no. This one's an array. Okay, I think the style won't do anything. Sweet. And if I move this one and draw that, what do I get? Eee, look at that. Ironically, here I can't edit it, so it's kind of broken on the other end. Somehow. That's interesting. Alright. Anyway, yeah, that's gonna be an ongoing process to add them all in. Maybe I'll do a session of just... To be honest, I'd rather get the components all working on the editing front first and then do one session where all the serialization gets added. But at least now I know that I can make it work, right? I mean, arrow editing is still a total mess and stuff, so that's going to be another session. But I think we're making a kind of a start on this. And this for the component inspector. Why is it saying component inspector here? That was weird. It's gone now. Wait a second. Oh, no. That's not what I wanted. If I click on puzzle. The first one doesn't replace it. The second one does, though. That's so strange. Inspector here. Here. So if I don't have this here, it'll crash out immediately? Wow, alright. Huh. Huh. Well, we can probably just leave this blank. Still kind of strange. Oh, is that? Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was from the other link. Huh. Huh. So if I now serialize it from here and then link to that, I should have a uber fat line. Look at that. Look at that. Very fatso. And... oh, sweet. Well, the editor is producing links now. That's a good start. All right, that's it for me. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks, Mark, for spotting those issues. And thanks for the feedback from Andy. And what else did we have here? We have Andy, we had Mark. Oh, and Astrid, thanks. Do appreciate that. Sorry about the mess up with the stream. It was a pity that Fizzbuzz and Nina didn't join in. They popped in on Twitch, but then I couldn't keep streaming on Twitch because of Restream. Anyway, in the meantime, if you like what I do, and if you want to see the editor succeed and the SudokuPad get better and all that stuff, and eventually me to set up a website with a social, puzzle sharing community type thing, you know where to find it, svencodes.com. Patreon.com/SwenCodes, etc., etc. Tell your friends. Oh, okay, Andy. Sorry about that. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. I need to make I think, can I make a note? I don't think so. That sucks. It would be cool if I could make a note about who's who. All right. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. And, well, I'll see you in the next stream, hopefully tomorrow. Take care. Have a good evening. Have a good morning. Have a good day. See ya.